they're pushing through. So there we have it. On the ballot as well, and I'm really glad that you're here, Monique, because there is going to be another ballot proposition about parental notification. You and I have argued about this. And frankly, your daughter just graduated, and mine's going to turn 14, so you don't get to say anything.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Just kidding.
Zip it.
And this is, regardless of everything on the ballot, I want to know what you guys think, why it's on there. Is this part of red meat for red states? Is this an issue that just brings out voters? Harriet, you can actually talk, but Harriet, what do you think?
I think I believe there are similar laws in quite a few states. I want to say a majority of states. And, you know, these folks are just going to keep going until they tie up our ability to govern our reproductive lives, tie it in knots, you know. I actually wanted to see this one promoted with Papa Pilgrim as the focus. Would you want your daughter to have to call Papa Pilgrim after being molested by him and let him know that perhaps she was pregnant and perhaps that wasn't such a good idea and perhaps she might need an abortion? That's the way I prefer to look at it. But you know, these folks who are so interested in no government intervention in every other area of our lives are sure interested in getting the government involved in our lives.
Frankly, I find it a little pervy.
Proposals like this.
You know, it's very important for people to say no on Proposition 2. I think that's the bottom line. What this proposition proposes is, it seems to suggest that parental notification might be a good idea. And you're right, other states have had similar laws passed, and we know what the outcome has been. It has not changed the number of abortions.
Can you tell exactly what the proposition says? Because what people signed, the 30,000 plus signatures, was very different than what the law would actually mean. Yeah. Can you just explain that?
I stopped and spoke with some of the people that were gathering signatures, and you know, the effort is very misguided. Regardless of where you fall on the reproductive rights, and the American Academy of Pediatrics Alaska chapter has come out no on Proposition 2 because it puts teenagers at risk. It really mandates communication in families, which you can't tell a dysfunctional family, now you all have to communicate now, we've made a law that says you have to. That's not how communication in families is encouraged. But back to the states that have passed laws like this, the number of abortions in teenagers has stayed the same. It's just that more teenagers have second trimester abortions because they procrastinate and they wait to tell their parents. And then a second trimester abortion does have more risk for the teenager. You're getting the same number of abortions, so as far as fetuses not coming to birth, it stays the same. But you just put teenagers at risk. Mm-hmm. And that has been true in multiple states where a law has been passed. So if your goal is to mandate communication, that's not going to happen. If your goal is to decrease the number of abortions, that's not going to happen. If you're hoping that teenagers turn to their parents, well, you know what? Actually, the studies show, guess what? That's already happening. Over 80% of kids or teenage girls that seek abortions do so with their parents.
Right.
The 17% that don't, there's a reason that they're not going to their parents. That parent may be the parent of the child they're carrying, so the parent and the grandparent.
Maybe you can communicate with your parent to get them to sign the parental notification when he comes into your room and gets in your bed at night. I mean, that's basically what you're asking a percentage. I'm sorry to be really gross about it, but we're the highest rate of incest, and we're not talking about, you and I both know parental notification is, and my dad knows this too, is where are you, who are you with, you will be home at this time, go wipe that makeup off your face, you look like a whore. I mean, whatever it is. I'm sorry, if you have a teenage girl, you have these conversations.
Yep.
I've had my dad scrub makeup off my face just for looking like, you were out trolling for something.
My husband said he had a contract that his daughters had to bring their boyfriends into the house to sign. A contract.
Well,
you will date my daughter.
My dad just cleaned the gun. That's what you do. You clean your guns with the gun. We got to go to a break. We're coming back, and I know the break's gonna be very exciting. So we're gonna try to hold it in until we come back with you. We'll be right back. Oh, all right, sweet Lord. Thanks. Welcome back. Dr. Monique Karaganis is here, Harriet Drummond, and Vince Beltrami, the rose between two thorns. We were just talking about...
Wow, I don't usually
oh,
get
wait,
described that
I
way.
meant a thorn between two roses.
Yeah.
I'm dyslexic. So we were talking before the break about the Proposition 2. We talked about Proposition 1, which is absolute crap. Proposition 2, which is really sort of this weird manipulative thing, I think, for voters, because obviously you want young women. Apparently, if you're a young man, there's no mandatory, vasectomies or anything else, not to make you uncomfortable, Vince, or anyone else. But if you're a young woman, we want you to talk to your parents, obviously. This isn't about people who are doing the honest-to-God parenting of a daughter sort of thing, where you're cleaning the guns and whatever. And Vince, you have some sort of antidote. He's been holding out on you for the entire break.
Well,
do tell. It better be good.
I mean, on this issue, anyway, I was born and raised Catholic, still going to church, and I know that if I took a position against this, there's a very good likelihood that I would be struck down by a bolt of lightning. So I don't weigh in too heavily on this one, but on the issue of parenting and being responsible parents, I have 3 daughters. And the oldest one was the first one, obviously, when boy showed up at the front door, honking well, he didn't come to the front door, out in the street honking the horn.
Oh!
Uh-oh. And I was like, who the hell is that? And that's guy and it honked again. I said, yeah, you just stay right here. I went out there and I said, hey, can you pop the hood on your, pop the hood there on the engine real quick? He's like, what? I said, pop the hood. So he kind of reached down and he pulled the hood, and I went and found the horn, and I yanked the wire off. I said, you ever pull up to my house again without coming to the door to talk to my daughter, I'm going to do a lot more than pull the wire off your horn.
So apparently pull the wire off your horn is a euphemism for if you get her pregnant, we're going to have something else.
See,
Take it as you will.
Okay, this
cannot mandate that kind of communication.
exactly. You cannot pass a law that says, I'm going to show you the other end of your favorite thing if you touch my daughter. Yeah. You can't mandate that. And that's real parental control. But this is about girls in this state, young women who are being sexually abused.
Well, the thing that's scary, it's not just sexual abuse, there are other concerns too. I mean, that's a huge concern because you are asking people to turn to their abusers for permission. And then you're asking teenagers to navigate the court system, which they may not be able to in a timely fashion.
They can't even pass a learner's permit the first time.
They weren't even able to figure out how to use protection. So,
well, abstinence only.
The thing is, if you want to decrease the number of teenage pregnancies, this is not how you do it. If you want to decrease the number of abortions, I was born and raised Catholic as well. You're not going to get a lightning bolt by being no on Proposition 2. Everyone should be no on Proposition 2 because it doesn't decrease the number of abortions. What I am worried about is that teenagers will go online and find dangerous ways of trying to not have to tell their parents. If they are in an unsafe situation, teenagers, again, we're talking about a small percentage in the teens that don't include their parents in the decision to have an abortion. That 17% may not do so because they're sexually abused. They may not do so because they have an emotionally unavailable parent that's incapable of being proactive. And so they know that this parent cannot handle this information. And so you can't go in and mandate for a teenager what is appropriate or what isn't.
Well, you can if you're the parent that's doing the job of being a parent. But
that assumes you're a functioning parent. Those are the parents that are already involved.
I went online one day while we were doing the radio show, and we were just briefly talking about this. And I Googled how to give yourself an abortion.
Yep.
Over 500,000 hits, and they were very specific. You go to the herb store and get golden seal and put it in your hoo, and all this stuff. All these things that, thousands of women have died trying to not be pregnant, and the secrecy and all that. And I really think that it's important that you have teachers that are engaged with kids to sort of be looking for these things. You were on the school board for a long time. My parents were both teachers. I know that they noticed when kids were having trauma or difficulty or like, hey, what's going on with you in the hall? We have people that are in our children's lives all the time and hopefully doing that, but they're not catching all of it and certainly lining this up. And
I'd just like to bring up another issue with this bill or this initiative is that if it passed, it would criminalize doctors for not getting permission from or not notifying the parents.
Or not documenting.
No,
like the
no.
five
They have to call. It says specifically that the doctor, if the doctor is contacted by a teenager who asks for an abortion, the doctor then has the responsibility of notifying them. This is why it's called
Who's
parental
gonna enforce
notification.
that?
And if you've got an explosively angry alcoholic father who gets that phone call in one of those tirades, you may be putting that child in danger.
That's
Like
right.
there is a reason that 17% has chosen not to communicate to their parents. If you want a daughter, and I get that, Vince, I get that, Shannyn, if you want a daughter to communicate to you, you need to have fundamentally had an open relationship that facilitates communication from birth on.
And you can't
it's
make
not
a law
suddenly
for
that they're
that.
teenagers. Exactly. You can't
You know what?
make a
Why
law
don't we
for
make
that.
a law about this?